Hello out there, and a really interesting knife to be talking about today because what you have in front of you is the Kizer-made Tangram Santa Fe. So this Santa Fe is the first in its line, the Tangram line, which is a brand extension basically from Kizer. So produced by Kizer, a new name for a new budget line. So this knife comes in right around $30, I think, and the only place that I know of that you can order it is on Amazon, at the Tangram store on Amazon. And yeah, just a really interesting way to go about things and a lot of really neat things about this knife. Good qualities and yeah, good materials as well. And we'll get into all that in just a minute, but I have to start with the packaging because the packaging is probably the most interesting knife packaging I've ever seen in my life. A little bit odd. I'm going to say right off the bat that I don't love it because I actually store all my knives in their boxes. So I keep the boxes and that's how I store them on a shelf. Don't really have a Pelican case or anything like that. So just a regular standard box size is good for me. And this one is definitely not that. But when you open this up, you can see you've got this interesting like layered cardboard. And then when you open that up, the knife goes right in here, closed up, and then you have like your goodies on this side. And over here, you get a Tangram Outdoors little bracelet. You get a like polishing cloth. So Tangram with their logo. Pretty neat there. And then the literature, if I can get this out of here, the literature is different as well. You know, just a cardstock folded up in this odd way. And the thing that I really like about this though is this first line right here. Tangram product is made by Kizer. So this isn't like a budget extension where a company is, you know, just trying to make budget knives and turn a quick profit and isn't 100% behind the quality of what they're doing. Kizer is definitely proud of what they're doing here. They're putting their name on it, they're stamping it, and basically, you know, calling it a Kizer produced product. So that gives me a lot of encouragement for what this line will continue to bring us and just for the quality that I can expect from this knife myself, because I expect a lot now when it comes from Kizer. One other neat thing, quickly going back to this polishing cloth, is I thought it was curious that the Kizer Barbosa in the Vanguard series, you know, at a much more expensive price, didn't come with one of those, but they are going that extra mile for the budget knife, which is neat. So good to see that. All right, but now we're 3 whole minutes in, haven't talked much about the knife, so let's do that. What we have here is a really nice blade shape of about 3.25 inches, and the steel is Japanese Akuto. Some people call it Japanese Akuto 440. It is essentially, supposedly, a steel that is just like 440C, but I don't know that for sure. I do know that I have had one other knife that has had steel that is referred to as the Japanese Akuto, and that was the CRKT Eros. So I don't know much about this steel, and that's sort of why when I unboxed this knife, I immediately went to work on it just to see how it would perform on this particular design and model. Just to get an idea of, you know, not the steel itself, but just the quality of the blade overall. And so I did use this knife extensively, a whole lot more than I do some of my knives right out of the packaging. I went out of my way to find some work, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. But what we have, just a nice grind on this knife, nice stone wash. Really impressed with the blade shape. One that I'm really happy and comfortable with because, you know, as my tastes progress, I realize that this type of blade shape, almost a Wharncliffe, is, you know, something that I really like a lot. You know, you can see the Kizer Rogue, which is a legitimate Wharncliffe, really straight. There is a little bit of belly here on the Santa Fe model, but yeah, not too much. So resharpening should be very simple, very easy. And again, I actually have a lot to talk about that in just a bit as well. We do have a choil for that, which is nice. And then as we move back, you can see that we have some jimping here. And the jimping, the good news about it is really grippy, really nice and grippy. The bad news is that when you close the knife, it recesses below the height of the G10 and the liners. So you don't get very much, if any, of the benefit of the jimping there. So that is unfortunate, and that is a slight knock on the knife. And the good news is that as we continue to go forward, that really might be the only knock I have on this knife at the $30 price point. All right, so let's continue to move on back and check out the rest of it. You can see we have an open frame flow through construction. We have some nice milling on our liners. The steel liners are good and thick. They run the entire length of the knife. We have this like desert tan or just tan G10, almost brownish, some might say. There is one other color configuration, and that is just black. And I might have preferred the black, but I just didn't have anything in tan in my collection, so I figured why not. And I thought that maybe down the road, if I were going to modify this and maybe like acid wash this blade and these liners, that the tan would look really good with that like darker color. So don't think that's in the cards anymore, but not a big deal there. And then as we move back, you can see from this side here, we do have a liner lock. It is a very strong liner lock. One thing that I did notice is that in use, this pivot will slightly loosen, and so you have to tighten it. A lot of people would prefer to Loctite that. That is always an option and not really a big deal to do. Personally, I sort of prefer to have that pivot more free. So, you know, if I do use the knife at the end of the day, you know, if I'm stropping it up or doing whatever I need to do to maintain it, just make sure that's retightened and good to go, you know, and that's really not a big deal for me at all. So just something to keep your eye on. And then continuing to move back, look at this pocket clip. It is a 2-position deep carry, really nice loop over. We've got a lanyard hole as well. So just really good stuff there. Very impressive. All right, and then the action is thumb studs. I'm going to pause for a quick second and take a look at the knife closed before I open it. So thumb stud opening, and if you look at the design, you know, it just sort of makes me think there should be a flipper, you know. Looking at the knife, I'm like, this is just naturally like a flipper kind of style knife, but it doesn't have one. And which is great because I love manual thumb stud knives, just like them. And it seems like flippers are all the rage, and we don't really get too many knives like this anymore. And it is on washers, it is on bronze washers, and it is pretty darn smooth. It's not going to blow you away, but it is something that is very good to see at the $30 price point. So yeah, very happy with that aspect of the construction. And then the G10 and the ergonomics, even despite, you know, the fact that the jimping isn't good or functional, let's say, because the jimping's fine, it's just not usable, the knife is still very comfortable in hand. And you can see my like medium to smaller hands, I still have plenty of real estate left at the butt of the knife. So if you do have larger hands and fingers, you probably still will be able to get a good grip. The G10 has like a medium traction that you would expect to see on something of like the Tenacious series, which again is very good. So, you know, basically hitting all the marks that we want to hit at this price point. So, very happy there. A couple quick size comparisons just so you can get an idea of what this knife might look like next to other ones. So here is the CRKT Squid. Let me bring in the Sage 5 since it happens to be right here. Pretty similar in terms of size to that as far as overall length, but the Tangram Santa Fe, slightly longer with the blade length. So a couple good things right here. Here's one that I haven't put on camera before. A little bit of a user here. This is the Kershaw Launch 3. And so, yeah, a little bit of size comparison right there. And now I want to talk more about the way the knife was in use and just the way it maintained. Because that's going to be a big thing with any budget knife. And like I said, I really went to work on this knife immediately out of the box. I did a whole bunch of cutting, and I did wear out the blade eventually. Now, it maintained itself really well. I mean, I did food prep with it. I made food for a couple days. Just a lot of like vegetable prep and, you know, a lot of foods with acidity. So, you know, anything that could impact the steel or cause corrosion or just or just make it wear out fast. You know, I tried to do everything that I possibly could, a whole bunch of boxes, and it did really, really well. It held its edge a lot longer than I sort of expected it to, and it was still functional even once that edge started to go. You know, it still got the job done. So again, I can't really make any declaration about Akudo 440 or Japanese Akudo or whatever we're going to call it. Can't say if it's a great steel or if it's not, but I can say that the way that this particular knife performs is pretty darn good. And I did have some nicks, and I did have it dull eventually, and that's actually how I'm going to finish the video, is by sort of cutting to a back in time clip where I show you how the edge looked before I sharpened it. All right, because I did have to sharpen this knife, and I did have to put about 10 to 15 minutes in on the Spyderco Sharp Maker, and every little nick that you're about to see at the end of the video, like, basically came out. You can see one tiny remnant of one right there, but I mean, this knife is super sharp again, and very, very functional. So I think the maintenance of this knife is going to be extremely simple, and you're going to be able to get a lot of really good stuff done with no problem. And you can see, I mean, even trying to do that on-camera cut test, it's just fine. It's super sharp and was really easy to do. And like I said, I'm just using a Spyderco Sharp Maker for that. So anyone with a more advanced sharpening system should have a whole lot more luck. I mean, getting it even better than I did, and a lot faster. So really impressed with that. I think that this knife is an excellent model for just hard use, good EDC stuff that you're going to be able to maintain easily. So really impressed with the first of this Kizer line, the Tangram, the Santa Fe. Looking forward to what they have coming in the future. And yeah, excited to hopefully get my hands on more of this steel and get a more rounded impression of the steel itself. But for right now, like I said, in this model, it is fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish the video actually cutting to the knife before I did the sharpening, so you can get a look at that edge and get a better idea of that. So that's where I'll finish. And yeah, any questions, comments, complaints, well, I'll be saying that in just a minute anyway. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care. And yeah, here's the rest of the video. Alright guys, so here we are about to sharpen this knife, and the stuff that I wanted to show you, and hopefully the things that you've seen have already gotten better, are just a couple nicks that are in the blade from, you know, just a lot of use straight out of the box with this knife. Like I said, I used this knife extensively right off the bat, and did a lot of like cardboard, a lot of just other materials at work. And when you're looking at it right now, even zoomed in, you can see an edge that looks pretty good. You know, it is dulled a little bit, but it is still for the most part intact. But what happens with me, and I'm sure with you, when I'm opening boxes that have any kind of material in them, is, you know, the first inch to a half an inch of the knife is what penetrates the box to cut it open. And so sometimes that part of the blade and edge makes contact with whatever is inside the box. And so that's what happened in this case. And maybe you can already see just right here near the top of the point, you can see there are a couple nicks in the blade. And I'm going to try to get this even closer and keep it focused so you can get a look at that, and so we can really see how easy this is going to be to sharpen out, because I don't really know. But yeah, just a couple spots, you know, you can see right here, and then further down a couple more, that just from, you know, using the knife, you know, those things sort of happen. And so it's stuff that obviously needs to be addressed and taken care of, and just a really good test of, you know, how easy this will be to maintain is to see, you know, how quickly we can get this edge back to the way that it should be. And so just a few little nicks that I'm going to try to sharpen out, and I'm going to end the video here because hopefully you've already seen how that has worked out, but now you know the before and you've seen the after. And so any other questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. I definitely appreciate you watching, and I look forward to talking with you more soon. Have a good one.